WAOB News 10 presents Dialogue, a weekly public affairs program exploring community concerns and spotlighting regional activities.
And good Sunday morning to you, everybody. Welcome to Dialogue. By now, you've heard about the trial, Moderna trial that took place here in Georgia, specifically Savannah, a couple of weeks ago. And the very first person to participate in that trial was a WTOC news anchor who anchors there in Savannah. Well, she is joining us today to talk about that experience. I am so happy to be talking with Dawn Baker. She is WTOC anchor, and actually that's our sister station. So hello, sister. How are you this morning?
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, now, the first thing I'm sure a lot of people want to know, how are you feeling?
Oh, I feel great. I've been very fortunate. The first day I took the vaccine, I felt nothing at all. And the second day, the day after, I felt my arm felt a little heavy, like kind of a little sore, like when you take a flu shot. And then after that, I have felt fantastic. I've had a burst of energy that I haven't had in a long time. So I'm really thankful for that. And I'm just praying that that is the only reaction that I have from this whole process.
So the next question, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, how did you find out about this trial? How were you able to be a participant?
Well, the week before, we did a news story on the Moderna trial vaccine. It was in the second phase at that point, and a few of the participants had sent us emails saying, you all should really do a story on this. So one of our reporters went, talked to Dr. Paul Bradley, who just happens to be my primary physician, and also the people at Meridian Research Center, and they got all the details. And this guy was really on fire. He's about 71 years old, and he was doing it in honor of his daughter, who is a nurse. So he knew firsthand what she was dealing with and how the pandemic was going. So I remember saying, wow, that's really brave. That's awesome. And I remember a while ago also hearing about a young man who was in his 20s from Washington State who was a part of it. And I was always fascinated by these people who were so brave to do something like this. I had no idea that I would be a part of it. So Dr. Bradley asked me the day after we ran the story, called and asked if he had a favor. And he's been my physician for more than 30 years. He treats my whole family. So I feel extremely comfortable with him. I know he's not going to let me get into anything that's going to hurt me. And he asked if I would be willing to join the study. And I said, what study? I said, the one we just did the news story on. He said, yes. I said, well, is it a live virus? I said, because what we talked about was not live. He said, Dawn, no one's putting COVID in anybody's body. I said, okay, well, that's good. I said, let me think about it for a while. And he said, well, don't tell anybody, because he especially was worried that maybe if I mentioned my mom might say, oh, you shouldn't do that. So I thought about it, and I called him back, and I said, well, okay, there's no COVID in it. Can I get COVID from taking this? And he said, no. I said, am I going to get really sick? He said, no, the first two phases where people had a mild flu, some were nauseous, some had a headache. I can deal with that. So I told him yes. And he said, well, I want you to be my first person in this trial. I was like, okay, never thinking about what that would mean. I just wasn't prepared at all for people to want to talk to me the way that they have. I mean, the way I see it is it's just a part of the process. And, I had to take the shot. So it's been a little bit overwhelming the last week and a half because I've been trying to juggle work and juggle interviews, and also trying to make it clear to people that this does not make me in any way an expert when it comes to COVID-19 or their study.
So what did they, how long is the study?
The study is 2 years. So I got the vaccine, not Friday, but the Friday before. So it's been 9 days now since I had the vaccine. And I had blood work done at that time, and just a regular kind of physical that I had, and also a COVID-19 test. And if I remember correctly, I will have 7 doctor's visits throughout the next 2 years, and all of those things will happen. So I kind of feel like I will be the healthiest I've been, because I don't think anybody ever gets like blood work and all those things taken that frequently. And the first 7 days, I had to fill out an app on my phone, which basically talked about symptoms. It asked me if I'd take my temperature every day, if I had a fever, if I had any pain, swelling, pain in my joints of any kind. It also asked me, what was the last question? lose my thought right now. But anyway, it asked me a series of general questions about symptoms and also if I had any COVID-19 related symptoms. So mine was always no. I did very, very well, and I didn't realize at the time it had gone by that quickly. So now there will also be 24 phone calls to me over the next 2 years to check and see how.
So do you happen to know how many people are participating in the study?
They're hoping for 30,000 people.
Say that again, 30,000?
30,000 they're hoping for.
Wow.
Now, I don't know how many they've gotten as of today, but they had a full house on the day that I got my vaccine. From what I was told by one of the reporters who went there, it was just people coming in left and right, and they were of all ages, all races, women, men from all over. Some drove as far as Brunswick to Savannah to be a part of the study, which is really impressive.
And by the way, Brunswick is my hometown too. We're both from near Savannah. Tell me about your background. You have been at WTOC as an anchor for how many years? And let's talk about your career.
I've been here a very long time. I grew up at WTOC. I'm going on my 31st year at WTOC in December. And I came in as a general assignment reporter and worked the court beat and the education beat, and I became the weekend anchor. And eventually I became the nighttime anchor, but I was also the reporter. And at some point, I believe it was around maybe 1998 or so, I became the 5:30 and the 11 o'clock anchor. And after that, we added all these new shows. And so now I anchor 4 newscasts. I anchor the 5, the 6, the 7, and the 11. And I love the area. I love the people. I think I chose to stay home because I'm that kid that many think shouldn't have made it. My parents were divorced when I was 2.5, and he never looked back. And he lives right in the viewing area and carries a scrapbook of everything I've ever done, but he's never actually had any interest in me. So I like to share the story with young people because I know so many of them come from those single family homes that, you don't need what you think is a perfect with 2 parents in order to achieve all of your dreams. My mom is just superwoman. She is a retired teacher. And I had a great village, which was my grandparents in Riceboro, who have passed on now, but Mary and George LeCount, and my aunt Yvonne Woods in Hinesville, Georgia. And I had this amazing village of people who taught me that I could do anything I set my mind to. And my grandfather, think about it, my grandparents were born in 1908 and 1906 when they couldn't have an education. And they put education in our family. So we had to go to school. We had to do well. And my grandfather was extremely blunt, which I think, honestly, we need more of that these days. He didn't care about self-esteem. He wanted you to know the truth about what was going on. So when I brought home that C in geometry and he knew I could do better, he was like, what in the world? Anybody can make a C by just sitting in a room. Are you not trying? Didn't bring a C home again in high school. So I will tell you, it's been amazing. And back in 2010, like everybody else, I started seeing how society was changing and got a lot concerned about what I saw happening with young women, especially career women who it seemed as if even though I may have been jealous as a child that they came up in homes with a mom and a dad together, I just feel like my family taught me some good common sense and some good morals, and even basic things like when you're angry, you don't go and yell at your boss. So I was telling my mom about it one day, and I said, I think I'm going to write a book. So I did. I wrote down a list of all the things that drove me crazy about girls and me, and tried to write a guide as to how we can handle certain situations. So the book is called Dawn's Daughter, Everything a Woman Needs to Know. And it talks about everything from self-esteem and education, getting your first job, how to keep that first job in terms of avoiding the gossiping and many times, I know this is old-fashioned, but I try to discourage dating at the job because, if it goes wrong, everybody knows. If it goes well, sometimes everybody knows. We talk about the value of community service and financial planning. And from that, about 2 or 3 years, well, actually 4 years later, I started a leadership academy. It's called the Dawn's Daughter Leadership Academy for 9th through 12th grade girls. And so we do everything based on the book and then more. So I call on all my friends who are professionals and ask them to do some workshops with my girls in addition to me and my mom. And we've had a wonderful ride. We average about 60 girls every year. And this year was pretty special in that, with the pandemic, we couldn't meet with them. So the last minute, I decided to do the Leadership Academy on Zoom.
Okay.
And so we had about 52, 54 girls each day. We met for a week. And it went well for them, but I realized that I was missing something because I wasn't blessed with children. So the highlight of my year has always been when I meet with those girls in the summer. We don't meet quarterly as well. So that was pretty sad to me. So I got to figure out how I can maybe do a social distancing party or something for them before it's all over. But it was just a wonderful experience. And just meeting all these dynamic young ladies who are just full of life and so talented and smart. The one thing I felt that I missed this time was the fact that, you know, when you're in a room with someone, you can actually connect more, especially with those who are shy. Because when you're on, you know, Zoom or what have you, you have pages of young people. It's hard to really zoom in on those who are shyer because you call on them, but you don't want to make them tune out where they won't come back or scare them.
Well, I tell you what. All right, Dawn, we need to take a break, but you just don't know the parallels that you have been talking about in terms of your life and how I'm like, that's me, that's me, that's me. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to actually share. Dawn has been on national news and probably international news as a result of her participation in this study for COVID-19. So we're going to take a break. When I come back, we're going to introduce the CNN package that ran, and then we're going to talk about those parallels. And I want to talk more about your book. I don't know if you've got a copy there, but you just need to give us that information again so that maybe some young ladies in our area might want to get a copy of it and sort of help them with their career. So stay with us. I'm going to talk more with Dawn Baker from WTOC. It's also our sister station, WALB's sister station. We're a Gray family. We'll talk more with her when we come back. And welcome back, everybody. I have been talking with Dawn Baker, who is an anchor for WALB's sister station in Savannah, WTOC, and she was the first person to get, of course, the vaccine in the study to find a vaccine for COVID-19. So I want to share with you the CNN package that aired about her. It says the first study subjects took part in the phase 3 trial of a vaccine against COVID-19. CNN's Elizabeth Cohen got reaction from the very first person in the U.S. to get that shot.
Joining us for the news at 11, I'm Dawn Baker. We have that breaking news we're following out of Hinesville tonight.
Dawn Baker usually delivers the news.
You'll verify your name again first for me?
But Monday morning, this television anchor in Savannah, Georgia, made news, made history, as the first person in the United States to participate in a phase 3 clinical trial for a vaccine against COVID-19.
Big day. Certainly is. It's really exciting to me that I could be a part of saving lives eventually. I mean, instead of just being scared and praying.
After Dawn's injection, study leader Dr. Paul Bradley called Moderna the company that makes the vaccine.
Connor, I have amazing news. We dosed the first patient.
The National Institutes of Health is collaborating on the trial. Dr. Anthony Fauci marked the day on a call with the media.
I can tell you absolutely the first one was at 6:45 this morning in Savannah, Georgia. Indeed, we are participating today in the launching of a truly historic event in the history of vaccinology.
There are nearly 90 study sites across the country for this vaccine. And phase 3 trials are underway for 4 other vaccines, 3 of those in China and 1 in the United Kingdom.
Hi, how are you?
Scientists hope that results of Moderna's trial will be clear in a few months and a vaccine on the market by the end of this year or the beginning of next. But that's if the vaccine is proven safe and effective, which is not a given.
Let me explain how the Moderna vaccine trial works. This is the vaccine, and about 15,000 people nationwide will get injected with this during the clinical trial. Now, this looks similar to the vaccine, but actually it's a placebo. It doesn't do anything. It's just saline. And another 15,000 people will be injected with this. And then afterwards, doctors will compare who gets sick with COVID-19 and who doesn't.
Doctors are recruiting study subjects who live in communities where they're most likely to get COVID, so they can see if the vaccine truly works.
We want people who are going to be exposed out there in the community, living their lives, whether they're, say, a healthcare worker, where unfortunately we get exposed frequently, maybe they're working in a grocery store, but we want people that are unfortunately at risk.
That's why doctors are recruiting heavily among the African American and Latino communities, where COVID rates are especially high. But it's a challenge because historically those communities have been abused in medical research.
Very suspicious, so maybe, you know, since I was at least bold enough to come forward right now, that might change that.
Coming forward to play a part in ending a pandemic that has brought the world to its knees.
You are the first person in the United States to get a shot in a phase 3 COVID trial. What does that feel like?
It is very exciting. I'm very anxious about it. I just hope that they're really, really good results. I know a lot of people are doing a lot of different vaccine trials and things are going on, but number one, I feel so proud to be in Savannah and to also be.
Okay, well, the phase 3 trial is the last stop before the U.S. Food and Drug Administration decides whether it can go on the market. We're talking with Dawn Baker today, and she was the first person, history maker, and she says so far so good. Now, again, this is a 2-year study. Dr. Anthony Fauci was aware of the study. He was excited about the study. Now, did you actually get a chance to talk with him?
I did not get a chance to talk to him. Now that would be a dream come true.
I tell you.
And not to be political at all. I just love people who are smart and know medicine and health. So hopefully that will be the end result. But I will tell you honestly, you know, we anchor every day and we tell the news several times a day, and anchoring 4 newscasts every single day. I've had to deal with numbers for both Georgia and South Carolina because of how our market is positioned. And it has really just broken my heart to hear all those people who have COVID-19. And I realize, I'm old enough to realize, I'm not reading about just numbers. These are individual people's lives. And just to see the number of people who have passed away, who have had to pass away alone, their families couldn't be there with them. We're during a time where they couldn't even have a proper send-off for their family members. I couldn't imagine what they're dealing with. So many people have truly suffered with serious, severe cases of COVID-19, including one of our own reporters. Our sports anchor, Lindsay Goff, was in the hospital for weeks. She was on a ventilator for more than a week. She's out of the hospital now. She's recovering, but she's extreme. This child is 27 years old. We weren't supposed to have to worry about her, you know, and so it just really touched my heart. And, you know, there's nothing I was able to do but wear a mask and keep 6 feet from everybody and pray. And of course, be extremely concerned that I would get sick at some point, that perhaps me going to visit my mom at times would make her ill because I've been going to work throughout the pandemic. I made a point of not going in the house, just dropping her groceries or whatever at the door. And so it's just something I feel like there's some power here that we're moving in the right direction. And hopefully this is the vaccine that can stop some of the suffering and misery that we've been going through the last 6 months and perhaps give us a new kind of normal way of living again.
Well, we need to take one final break, and when we come back, I want you to share information about your book again in case somebody wants to get that, and also how people might reach out to you, and if you can tell us, I guess, will there be like group settings and that type of interaction with other people who have participated? So we'll be right back and talk more with Dawn Baker after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody. Still talking with Dawn Baker, WTOC anchor, and also the very first person in the U.S. To participate in a phase 3 trial vaccine against COVID-19. So in the first segment, you mentioned your book. If you will hold that up, hold your book up, and how can people get copies of it?
Well, you can either email me at dbaker@WTOC.com, or I have a website. It's Dawn Baker Online at WTOC.com.
Okay, so we will make sure that we keep that information. If we have viewers in Southwest Georgia who want to need some motivation, they can get it from your book. So again, you are a history maker, 2-year study in terms of the phase 3 trial of that vaccine against COVID-19. Do you know how often you said you will visit with the doctors, if you can revisit that?
I will have a second, there are 2 vaccine shots. So I do know that my second vaccine shot is August 24th. And also the doctor's appointments are spaced out kind of like quarterly. There's 7 of those total within the next 2 years. I also will get 24 phone calls from Meridian Research Center from those people to see how I'm doing, and I can continue to log symptoms with them. Now, one thing that is making me a little bit anxious is I do know that in the first 2 phases of the study, the people had their side effects after the second shot. So hopefully mine will remain mild. But again, those side effects were very mild. It was a mild flu, headaches, fever, and some nausea. I can handle that. If we can completely get our lives back and save lives, I just can't believe that we've lost more than 150,000 people in America, and so many in our section of Georgia. It's just unreal. And what happened with Albany, with it being such a hot spot when all this first started. So there's just a lot of suffering that we have a chance to alleviate. And I really hope that this is what this vaccine will do.
I can tell you that, you've heard feedback, I'm sure you have as well, from people who said even when they came out, or if they come up with a vaccine for COVID, they're not so sure they're trusting enough to take it. So what do you say to that? And let me just say this before you answer. When we read those numbers, as you say, it does take on a different meaning when you have personal friends who are people in your community who have passed away as a result of COVID. I experienced that numerous times, and it's not just about numbers anymore. It's about people's lives. And I agree with you, when you cannot go and do what is the traditional farewell in terms of a funeral service and comfort the family, you can't do that. COVID has impacted our lives. I know there are people who say, this isn't really a big deal. It is a big deal. So what do you say to people who are afraid of taking the vaccine if and when it's approved?
Well, I would like to tell them that I understand the mistrust of the government and health because of how especially Black people have been treated in our country when it came to, especially most popular has been the Tuskegee experiment many years ago, where these unwilling participants had no idea that they were being diagnosed with syphilis of all things, and they were just pretty much tested, live testing, and many of them lost their lives and suffered unnecessarily. I get that. But a lot has happened since the Tuskegee experiment. And all of us, let's face it, especially at a certain age, probably those of us who are over 30 at least, we're alive because of many toxins that are floating around in our body that our parents, who were much closer to the Tuskegee experiment and other problems that Black people have had with the government, with health in our nation, and they agreed to give us measles, mumps, rubella, polio, diphtheria vaccinations, and probably more that I don't even know about. But and that kept us alive. That's keeping us safe. So I think that at a certain point, we have to decide what we're going to trust. And for me, I'm not going to say it would have been easy if anybody else would have asked me to do this. This was my doctor of more than 30 years. I have a very good rapport with Dr. Paul Bradley. He takes care of my entire family. I know that he will not do anything to put me in harm. So that's a completely different connection I have with him. Because I do understand people's concerns, and they are legitimate. But let's face it, with all the experts in the world trying to come together, the only way that they see a way out of us getting away from masks and never being able to hug our extended family again is some kind of vaccine. So
well, I'm with you in terms of parents. I haven't seen my mom since December. So thank goodness for FaceTime and texting and all of that. Your email address again, d.baker@WTOC. Give it to us. D-Baker, I'm sorry. dbaker@WTOC.com. And we can follow you on Facebook. I already follow you. So I'm going to be keeping up with you. And I thank you so much for sharing your time and for what you're doing, hopefully, to get rid of this COVID. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful Sunday, everybody.